Making box frames requires miter saws. The one shown here is an electric miter saw and is adequate for our purposes. The normal blade gives a rough cut. Adjust the square ruler to 45 degrees and make the first cut. When setting the blade to the cut mark, make sure the power is first turned off. The measurement mark shown is to the outside of the frame. These are two setting types depending on the type of saw blade you are using. The safer option is this type of miter saw, which is hand operated. This setup is for right-handed people. For the first cut, the length must be slightly larger than required. Always clamp the wood firmly in place before cutting. The sawing is best done with a slight rocking motion as seen here. Mark the length you need on the longest face. Place the blade on that mark and stick masking tape for a guide for cutting the short length. Finish the second cut. The longest face must always be toward you. Place the cut end of the long wood strip, the bevel side facing towards you. Line it up to the masking tape guide. Clamp the strip in place with a spacer, and the strip used here is 30 mm by 10 mm. No further measurements are required for all lengths of the same size. Cut as many as you need for the boxes required. Test to see if these two are exactly of the same length. I have already determined the length of the longest sides. Now line up to the tape and clamp firmly in place, and cut as many of the longer lengths as you need. For joining the corners, I have a clamp from the Logan underpinning machine. Take the two lengths, the shorter one and the long one, and place them carefully into the corner and tighten up to grip them ready for joining the corner. In this example, I'm using a large stapler with 8 mm length spikes. We now need to turn it around to add another staple. This will strengthen the corner. Now, in making smaller boxes like we are making here, you don't need to glue the joints. However, if you are making larger boxes, it is best to both glue and staple the corners. This is a close-up of the staple showing how nicely it's recessed into the wood. Continue joining the other corners, making sure that you don't get mixed up between the long and the short lengths. If you don't concentrate, it is easy to clamp two of the same size together by mistake. If you have cut the board a bit too large, then cut away the excess as close to the box as possible. This saves a lot of sanding time, and the board must also have a slight overlap all around the frame. Make sure the staples are flush in the frame so as not to cause a gap between the board and the frame, and then apply a thin bead of cold PVA glue all around the edge. Turn the frame around and carefully place it over the board, checking you have an overlap all around the sides. And once you are satisfied, place a heavy object on the frame and leave it to dry completely. Now I like belt and braces, and as a precaution I applied 2 panel pins to the board. Make sure that the panel pins are not skew. You don't want them suddenly protruding out the side of the frame. It can easily happen if you are not careful. Now that the box is finished, it is ready for the final touches. We need to sand the protruding edges so that they are absolutely flush with the sides of the box frame. And every now and again, feel if more sanding is needed. Now don't forget the earmuffs and the dust mask. Here is another method of corner fixing using commercial V-nails. All professional framers use these types of nails. Clamp the box sides as demonstrated previously and place a V-nail with the cutting edge facing downward onto the magnetic plunger. Line it up and apply pressure to the lever. Turn the corner around and nail the other side. Finish all the other corners. To round off this tutorial, here is a glimpse of some finished and half-finished box frames. Go and enjoy making your own.